What is the future of the podcast? I know you're getting ready to wrap up season 2. Will there be a season 3?
There will be. I mean, I think, like as Phil said, when we started this, it was sort of an experiment. Like, if we do this, A, does anybody care? Are we just talking to ourselves? And then B, can we attract those guests who can thoughtfully present each side? And you know, I think we've been able to do that. And so, yeah, I think we're going to keep going. We also think it's part of, you know, the Baker Center for Public Policy is now, you know, part of a school at the University of Tennessee, and I think we'd love to see that become a place, or the place, that people look to from across the state and maybe across the country. Is how do we promote a better civic dialogue? So it's hopefully part of the bigger mission of the Baker Center as well.
I would love to. I don't have the connection to the University of Tennessee that Bill does. It's not where I went to school. But I would love to see the Baker Center just become really a focus for the whole country on how to approach democracy in a sort of civil and practical way. I mean, I think that kind of thing ought to come out of here in the middle of the country, and you know, a state like Tennessee. I'd love to see us really become leaders in this nationally and not just in the state.
But the way you end every podcast is you ask your guest, has there ever been a time where you thought, hey, you might be right, they might be right? Have you, through this process, had that realization? If not through the podcast process, at a point that's been
I'm always right, aren't you? Yeah, I have in these podcasts, a couple of them. Some of the things that were said, for example, in the one on guns, about how in part this has always been a very violent country, was something I really had not understood, and helped me to understand how this issue might be tackled. And certainly have had examples of that outside of the podcast in government. To me, the quality you have to have in people is just a little bit of humility. I mean, look, if you've got a lot of it, you're not going to run for office, and we all recognize that. You know, people who run for governor or mayor have got adequate egos, but just this notion of saying, like, I don't know everything, and I need to listen carefully to to other people and evaluate it. I think is an important quality, and you know, for my part, when I can make that work, and it doesn't always happen that way, I think I always end up with better answers than I would otherwise.
Yeah, I can think of several. I mean, usually for me, it's not so much, oh, I'm going to dramatically move on that, but it's you know, when Jeff Lash came and talked about the potential to build, you know, smaller scale nuclear reactors, and is that a potential for solving some of our energy issues, it kind of opened up like, yeah, I think that is an avenue that we need to be pursuing. And of course, in East Tennessee, we're right at the heart of a lot of the possibility there. You know, like I said, the same thing on guns. You kind of listen, and that's one of those issues. I mean, I have a position on that, but you listen to both sides, and you kind of, okay, I get a little bit more of the argument from the other. You know, term limits was a big one, and I kind of came away modifying my view of where term limits are appropriate and where they're not.
Mm-hmm. How has your relationship through this experience, has it changed in any way? Has it I don't know. Well, how has it played out?
You might remember this when the way that I felt like we first got to know each other. When I was mayor, we had a series. We'd have people in for kind of interview conversations, and down the World's Fair Park site in Knoxville, we came. It was actually the day before an Alabama football game, because I gave him a hard time for not wearing anything orange, as I remember. But I was a mayor.
Ignorance.
I was a mayor, and he was the governor, and we came and did a conversation between the two of us about how should the city work with the state, what are the growth potentials, et cetera. And I remember thinking then, like, different parties, and there's some things we have different views on, but fundamentally, this is somebody who really wants what's best and is trying to answer problems. And kind of from that day, I felt like, again, while I was mayor and he was in office, and then when you walk into being governor, you know, you start day one, but you don't. It's not a 100-yard dash. You get the baton from the person who came before you, and there were so many things that he was working on, whether they be economic development opportunities. There was a lot happening around education. We had just won Race to the Top. Now we needed to implement that. So I called him frequently about things like that. Just tell me what you were thinking. Tell me about this budget item, et cetera. So, from, I guess, the first time we had that conversation back in World's Fair Park, which I think it was like 2005, he's been a kind of a source of information, helped me understand this.
I could go on and on, but
Nope.
I want to be respectful of your time. I've taken way too much of it.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks for coming
very
up. Thanks
much.
for doing it. Yeah.
This has been my pleasure and honor. So thank you.
Back with John North, who was a part of that interview. John, some final takeaways.
Well, the big one I'm going to tell you, I'm going to repeat what Bill Haslam said. Don't bail out. Take part in your government. You have a responsibility. We need it now more than ever. The other thing I wanted to mention is just to underscore, the Baker Center is sort of the sponsor here. It's under their umbrella, and a big shout out to them for doing this project.
John North, we appreciate you and we appreciate the time. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week right here on Inside Tennessee.